Man who is secretly attracted to you always shows these signs. I am Bonang Matheba, and if there is one thing I have learned from years of hosting red carpets, launching collections, and quietly watching love stories unfold behind the scenes, it is this. Men who are secretly attracted to you will never announce it with a billboard. They announce it with their eyes, their shoulders, the way they suddenly remember the exact way you take your coffee 3 months after you mentioned it in passing. I've been that girl who wondered if the lingering glance across the room was real, or just the lighting, the one who replayed a 2-second brush of hands on a crowded elevator for an entire week. And I have also been the friend who sat across from countless women, pouring rosé and translating the unspoken language of attraction into something they could finally trust. Today, I am pulling the curtain all the way back. Over the next 10 chapters, I am going to walk you through the 10 undeniable signs that he is into you, even when his mouth stays shut. These are not theories pulled from magazines. They are receipts from my own life, from late-night set trailers, from Johannesburg rooftops, from New York fashion weeks, where someone's gaze followed me longer than the flashbulbs. I want you to feel the same electric certainty I felt the first time I realized a man was rearranging his entire schedule just to stand in the same zip code as me. We begin with the eyes because, darling, the eyes are the original text message and they never lie. By the time we are done, you will walk into any room knowing exactly who is secretly writing your name across their heart. Let us start where every secret love story starts, with a look that lasts half a second too long and changes everything. I remember the night it first clicked for me. I was 26, hosting a charity gala in Cape Town, wearing a gold dress that caught every shard of chandelier light. The room was a swirl of tuxedos and champagne flutes, but there was one pair of eyes that kept finding me like a lighthouse beam cutting through fog. He was a producer I had met once, maybe twice, always polite, always professional, yet every time I turned, there he was, watching, not staring, watching. There is a difference. Staring is rude, watching is reverent. I caught him 3 times that night. The first time he smiled and lifted his glass. The second time he looked away so fast, I almost laughed out loud. The third time, our eyes locked and neither of us moved. In that suspended moment, I felt it, the click, like a camera shutter freezing a truth neither of us had spoken. Later, when I told my best friend, she rolled her eyes and said, "Girl, he is married to his work." 6 months later, he was divorced from his work and sending me playlists titled "Songs That Remind Me of Your Laugh." The eyes had spoken first. They always do. Science backs this up, though I did not need a study to tell me what my pulse already knew. When we are attracted, our pupils dilate. It is involuntary, ancient, a leftover from the days when wider pupils meant better night vision for spotting a mate across the savannah. In modern terms, it means the man who claims he is just friendly cannot stop his body from screaming the opposite when you walk in wearing that red top you love. I have seen it in green rooms, on planes, in grocery store lines. The pupils betray them every time, but it is not just the size, it is the journey his gaze will travel. From your eyes to your mouth and back again, like he is memorizing the route. I once had a director do this during a table read. Every time I spoke, his eyes dropped to my lips for a split second, then snapped back up, guilty. By the end of the week, he was offering to rewrite an entire scene just to keep me on set an extra day. The mouth, sisters, is the gateway. When his eyes keep returning there, his mind is already halfway to the kiss. And then there are the stolen glances, the ones he thinks you do not notice. You are laughing at someone else's joke, or checking your phone, or simply existing. And out of the corner of your eye, you catch him. He is not smiling with his mouth yet, but his eyes are soft, unguarded, drinking you in. That is the moment the mask slips. That is the moment you know. I learned to trust those moments, the way sailors trust stars. They do not lie, they do not flirt for sport, they simply reveal. By the end of that gala night, I knew 2 things. 1, I would never forget the way he looked at me when the band played the first slow song. And 2, the next time a man's eyes lingered like that, I would stop doubting my own heartbeat. The eyes are the opening chapter of every love story worth telling, and once you learn to read them, you will never again wonder if you are imagining things. Fast forward 2 years. I am in Atlanta for a brand launch, jet-lagged and running on adrenaline and sweet tea. The event is packed, the music is loud, and I am signing posters when I feel it again, that magnetic pull of being watched. This time, it is a photographer I have worked with before. Tall, quiet, always behind the lens. I look up mid-signature, and there he is, camera lowered, just staring. Not through the viewfinder, just staring. His eyes are doing that thing, soft at the edges, like I am the only person in the room worth focusing on. I smile, he smiles back, then looks down at his shoes like a teenager caught passing notes. Later that night, during the after party, it happens again. I am in a group telling a story about a disastrous runway show in Paris, and every time I gesture, his eyes follow my hands. When I laugh, his whole face answers before his mouth catches up. I test it. I excuse myself to the restroom, weave through the crowd, and sure enough, when I glance back, he is tracking me like a slow-motion scene in a movie. That is when I realize the eyes do not just reveal attraction, they reveal obsession in its sweetest form. And obsession, when it is respectful, is the most delicious feeling in the world. I started paying attention to the science after that night. Dopamine floods the system when we see someone we want, and the eyes widen to take in more light, more detail, more of you. It is why candidates on election night have dilated pupils when they win, why babies' eyes go huge when they see their favorite toy. It is biology shouting what the mouth is too scared to whisper. I have seen it in boardrooms when a man is trying to close a deal he desperately wants, and I have seen it in dive bars when a man is trying to close the distance between your bar stool and his. The pupils do not care about his relationship status or his 5-year plan. They only care about you. But let us talk about the lip glance, because that one deserves its own spotlight. I was on a podcast once, headphones on, mid-sentence, when the host, a usually stoic guy, did it. Eyes on mine, then flicked to my mouth, then back up so fast I almost missed it. The producer in the booth texted me later, "He is toast." 2 weeks later, he asked me to dinner as friends. We both knew the friendship lie was paper thin. The lip glance is the mind's preview button. It is him imagining the kiss before he has even worked up the courage to ask for your number. And the beauty is, he does not know he is doing it. It is subconscious, automatic, a sneak preview his body gives you for free. Then there are the shy ones, the men who panic, look away, look back, look away again. I dated one once. A writer. We would be at dinner with friends, and every time I reached for the water pitcher, his eyes would dart to me, then to the tablecloth, then back to me. By dessert, I was counting the cycles like a game. 7 glances in 1 hour. I confronted him later, teasing, and he turned the color of Merlot. "I can't help it," he said. "You're distracting." Distraction is the sweetest compliment a man can pay you without using words. The eyes, my loves, are the first chapter, but they are also the table of contents. They tell you what is coming, the lean in, the accidental touch, the way he will remember your coffee order 6 months from now. They are the promise that the story is already being written, even if he has not found the courage to read it aloud. Trust them. They have never steered me wrong, and they will not steer you wrong either. The next time you catch him looking, and he pretends he was not, smile to yourself. The secret is already out, and the best part is just beginning. Now let us talk about the body, because once the eyes have done their confession, the body takes the stand and testifies with every inch of skin. I was in New York, Fashion Week chaos, running between shows in heels that should be illegal. I ducked into a cafe for a quick espresso, and there he was, and stylist I had flirted with harmlessly the season before. He saw me, stood up straighter, and I swear his shoulders rotated toward me like a compass finding north. That is the first thing the body does when attraction hits. It orients. Scientists call it ventral fronting. I call it magnetic. His chest, his hips, even his feet pointed at me while he pretended to check emails on his phone. I ordered, he moved closer in line without seeming to move at all. By the time I had my cup, he was right beside me, accidentally reaching for the same sugar jar. Our fingers brushed. He did not flinch. He lingered. That is the second thing the body does. It closes distance. I have felt it in elevators, on planes, in crowded after parties. The man who is secretly into you will find a way to shrink the world until it is just the two of you and 3 inches of charged air. I started noticing the mirroring next. He lifted his cup when I lifted mine. I tucked hair behind my ear. He scratched his temple. I crossed my legs. He shifted his weight. It is not conscious. It is the body saying, I am like you, I am with you, I am safe. I once had a co-star who mirrored me so perfectly during rehearsals that the director joked we were twins separated by gender and a decade. Off camera, he was shy, but his body was fluent in my language. By rap day, he had memorized not just my lines, but the way I said action with a little laugh at the end. Mirroring is intimacy in slow motion. Then come the preening gestures. The man who is secretly attracted will suddenly care about lint that was never there. He will smooth his shirt, adjust his watch, run a hand through hair that was already perfect. I watched a CEO do this once before a panel I was moderating. Tie straightened, cuffs shot, smile checked in the reflection of his phone. All for a room of 200 people, but really for the one woman in the front row wearing the yellow blazer. The body wants to be its best self for you, even when the mind is still negotiating terms. And let us not forget the nervous energy. The tapping foot, the bouncing knee, the way he suddenly has to check his phone for the 5th time in 2 minutes. I dated a musician who would drum on his thigh in the exact rhythm of my heartbeat when I sat next to him. He claimed it was muscle memory from guitar practice. I knew better. Nervous energy is the body's way of burning off the electricity you generate just by existing nearby. But the most telling is the stillness. Yes, stillness. The moment everything else falls away and he just stops. I felt it once on a film set. The director called cut, crew scattered, and there he was, my co-star, frozen mid-step, watching me untie my robe between takes. No fidgeting, no phone, no distraction. Just presence. In that stillness, I heard everything he was not saying. The body, when it is truly captivated, forgets how to multitask. It gives you its full attention like a standing ovation. I have seen it in quiet moments, the way he leans in when you speak, not just with his head, but with his whole torso, the way his hands open slightly, palms up like he is offering something invisible, the way his breathing syncs with yours without either of you noticing. These are not accidents. These are love letters written in posture and proximity. The body never lies because it does not know how. It only knows want. And when it wants you, it broadcasts on every frequency. By the time I left that New York cafe, the stylist had accidentally walked me 3 blocks out of his way just to carry my umbrella. His body had already said yes, long before his mouth worked up the nerve. And that, my darling, is the power of the second chapter. The body takes the confession the eyes started and turns it into a full symphony. When you learn to listen, you will never again need words to know where you stand. The music is already playing and your name is the melody. The third sign is the one that turns coincidence into destiny. He always finds a way to be where you are. I learned this lesson in the fluorescent lit trenches of a Los Angeles gym at 6:30 on a Tuesday morning when the only thing supposed to be awake was my ambition. I had flown in the night before for a talk show taping, hair still smelling like airplane air, and I needed the treadmill the way some people need church. I was halfway through mile 2, headphones blasting Beyoncé, when I spotted him in the mirror. Same guy from the hotel lobby the evening prior, the one who had held the elevator with a polite nod and zero small talk. Now here he was, claiming the rower directly in my sightline. I told myself it was the hotel, gym, small world, whatever. Then Wednesday happened. Same time, same treadmill, same guy, this time on the stair climber positioned like he had paid extra for the view. By Thursday, I was curious. I switched my workout to the rooftop yoga deck at sunset. Guess who wandered up with a water bottle and a suddenly deep interest in downward dog? Coincidence has limits, and we had sprinted past them. I started keeping a mental log, the way detectives keep stakeout notes. Friday, he appeared at the juice bar right after my spin class, pretending to debate kale versus spinach. Saturday, he was in the lobby bookstore when I went down for a paperback reaching for the same Zadie Smith novel. Sunday, he boarded the same shuttle to the airport, chose the seat across the aisle, and spent the entire ride stealing glances over the top of his screenplay. 7 days, 7 chance meetings. By the time we landed at JFK, I was half in love with the choreography of it all. Attraction, I realized, is a gravitational pull that rewrites GPS coordinates. He does not need your calendar, he just needs the scent of possibility. I have seen it play out in subtler theaters too. The coworker who suddenly volunteers for the project you are leading. The neighbor who starts walking his dog at the exact minute you take out the trash. The friend of a friend who materializes at every birthday dinner you did not personally invite him to. These are not accidents, they are pilgrimages. The man who is secretly into you will engineer proximity the way architects engineer skylines, quietly, persistently, beautifully. I once had a designer in Milan who discovered I loved late-night gelato. For the entire week of shows, every night around 11, he would happen to be outside my hotel with 2 spoons and a pint of stracciatella. He never asked to join me. He simply appeared, offered the spoon, and walked beside me while I ate. By day 4, I was waiting for him. By day 7, I was disappointed on the night he did not show because fashion emergency. That is the magic. He turns your routine into a treasure hunt where the prize is simply more time in your orbit. And let us not ignore the digital version of this dance. He likes your Instagram story within 30 seconds of posting. He is the first to watch your TikTok, even the one about your cat's veterinary drama. He slides into your Spotify collaborative playlist with songs that feel suspiciously like love letters. Online proximity is still proximity, and the heart does not care if the miles are physical or pixelated. The beauty is in the effort disguised as effortlessness. He will never say, I rearranged my life to breathe the same air as you. He will say, crazy running into you again, while his pulse does cartwheels. I started trusting the pattern the way sailors trust tides. When a man shows up in the same zip code, more often than statistics allow, believe the math. Your presence has become his favorite destination, and he is willing to reroute the entire map to get there. By the time I hugged that gym stranger goodbye at baggage claim, he still had not asked for my number, but he had asked for my flight gate just in case. 2 weeks later, a playlist arrived in my DMs titled LAX to JFK and everything in between. The first song was about missing someone you barely know. The third sign is not random. It is a love story, learning how to walk, and every step is headed straight toward you. The fourth sign is memory made tangible. He remembers the little things, the ones you barely remember telling him. I discovered this in the middle of a Johannesburg winter, wrapped in a blanket on my couch, binge-watching reality TV with a girlfriend and a bottle of Pinot. My phone buzzed. A text from a producer I had met exactly once, 3 months earlier, at a networking brunch. The message read, saw this and thought of you. Attached was a photo of a tiny bookstore in Melville with a chalkboard sign that said, closed for winter, back when the jacarandas bloom. I had mentioned, in passing, mid-conversation about favorite seasons, that jacaranda blooms were my Madeleine, my instant childhood teleportation device. I had said it to the table, not to him specifically, and yet here it was, filed away in his mental Rolodex under things that make Bonang smile. I stared at the screen so long, my friend snatched the phone, read it, and squealed loud enough to scare the dog. That was the moment I understood. A man who is secretly attracted does not just hear you, he archives you. The little things are the currency of emotional investment. Anyone can remember your birthday if it is on Facebook. But the man who recalls that you hate cilantro, that your childhood dog was named Peanut, that you cried during the trailer for the dog movie, he is spending mental real estate on you. And real estate is the one thing millionaires and broke artists alike never give away lightly. I started collecting these receipts like love coupons. The stylist in Paris who remembered I loved my coffee, blonde and sweet, and had it waiting every morning before I reached the fitting room. The radio host in Atlanta who quoted a throwaway line I had said on his show 6 months earlier, word for word, like he had rehearsed it. The makeup artist in Cape Town who brought me ginger chews because I once complained about motion sickness on boats. These were not grand gestures, they were postcards from the country of I was listening. And listening, sisters, is foreplay for the soul. I have watched men forget their own anniversaries, but recite the exact brand of tea I drank when I had a sore throat in 2019. Memory is selective, and when a man selects you for permanent storage, it is because you have taken up residence in the part of his brain usually reserved for passwords and song lyrics. The science calls it episodic memory. The stories we keep because they matter. I call it proof. Proof that your offhand comment about loving rainy days and old school R&B was not background noise, it was a seed he watered. I once had a director who remembered I was terrified of escalators after a childhood mall incident. For the entire shoot, whenever we approached one, he would casually step in front, offer his arm, and guide me to the elevator like it was the most natural thing in the world. He never mentioned the fear again, but he never let me face it alone either. That is the quiet power of the fourth sign. It makes you feel seen in Technicolor when the rest of the world is still watching in black and white. By the time that producer showed up at my door 3 winters later with a jacaranda sapling in a pot, I was not surprised. I was ready. The little things are never little. They are the breadcrumbs that lead straight to the heart. And when a man follows them back to you, believe the journey. The fifth sign is the one that turns a room into a solar system and you into the sun. His energy shifts the moment you arrive. I felt it first in a crowded Miami rooftop bar, the kind where the bass line competes with your heartbeat and the air smells like salt and expensive cologne. I was late, weaving through bodies, apologizing with smiles, when I spotted him, a music executive I had interviewed months earlier. He was mid-laugh with a group of guys, all teeth and charisma, until the second he saw me. The laugh did not stop, but it changed key, like a song modulating because the melody just walked in. His shoulders lifted, his voice dropped half an octave, and suddenly the story he was telling had a new audience of one. I had not said a word yet, but the room had already recalibrated around my presence. That is the power of the fifth sign. You become the weather, and he becomes the forecast. Some men get louder, like they are trying to broadcast their worth across state lines. I have seen quiet accountants turn into stand-up comics the minute their crush enters the Zoom call. Other men get quieter, like the volume knob of the world has been turned down so they can hear your voice in high definition. I dated a surgeon once who could command an operating theater with a whisper, but around me he spoke so softly I had to lean in. And leaning in, darling, is exactly where he wanted me. The shift is not always volume, sometimes it is temperature. The way his smile reaches his eyes only when you are in the punchline. The way his posture straightens, like he is standing at attention for a national anthem only he can hear. I have watched Wall Street traders soften their edges, rappers slow their flow, grandmother's favorite grandsons suddenly remember manners they forgot at age 12. Energy is contagious, and attraction is the original virus. It rewires the circuitry. I started noticing the micro shifts too. The way his breathing syncs with mine when we stand close enough to share oxygen. The way his jokes land differently funnier because I am the one laughing. The way his phone stays face down, a miracle in the age of notifications. I once had a co-host who would tease everyone on set, sharp and relentless. But with me, the barbs turned into compliments wrapped in velvet. The crew noticed before I did. He's different when you're here, the cameraman said, winking. Different is the understatement of the century. Different is a man rewriting his personality in real time because your presence is the editor he trusts most. And let us not forget the jealous flicker, the tiny storm cloud that passes over his face when another man makes you laugh too hard. It is not possession, it is protection. I have seen it in dive bars and boardrooms, the subtle lean-in when a waiter lingers too long, the casual arm draped over the back of my chair like a flag planting territory. Energy reveals priority, and when a man's entire frequency tunes to you the way a radio finds its favorite station, you are not just in the room, you are the reason the lights feel brighter. By the time that Miami night ended, the executive had walked me to my car, insisted on carrying my heels when they became weapons of mass destruction, and quoted a line from the interview I had forgotten. I said, "His energy had followed me like a spotlight, and I bathed in it." The fifth sign is not subtle. It is a supernova, and once you recognize the light, you will never again settle for standing in anyone's shadow. The sixth sign is the one that feels like static electricity dancing across your skin, the touch that pretends to be accidental but is anything but. I learned this in the cramped backstage hallway of a Los Angeles theater, minutes before I was supposed to introduce a pop star to a screaming crowd. The corridor was a maze of cables and coffee cups, and I was speed walking in 6-inch heels when I collided with him, a lighting tech I had smiled at exactly twice during rehearsals. My notebook flew, his headset tangled, and in the scramble to untangle ourselves, his hand landed on the small of my back, steady, warm, lingering 2 full seconds longer than physics required. He muttered, "Sorry," I muttered, "No worries," but the air between us crackled like a live wire. That was the first spark. By the end of the week, there had been 7 more. A brush of fingers passing a water bottle, a guiding palm during a blackout drill, a playful nudge when I tripped over a sandbag. Each touch was feather-light, deniable, but together they formed a constellation on my skin that spelled his name in Morse code. Touch, when it is secret attraction, is a language of almosts. Almost too close, almost too long, almost a kiss. I have felt it in elevators where the crowd pressed us together and his hand found the curve of my waist like it had been choreographed. I have felt it in green rooms where a high five lingered into a finger lock no one else noticed. I have felt it on red carpets when a photographer steadied me on uneven pavement and his thumb traced a tiny circle against my spine before letting go. These are not accidents, they are auditions. He is testing the temperature of your boundaries, seeing if the spark jumps both ways and the body keeps score. Science says a single touch releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, faster than a confession. I say it releases certainty. I once had a costume designer who would adjust a sleeve that did not need adjusting, his fingertips grazing my collarbone like he was tuning an instrument. By closing night, he had memorized every inch of fabric that touched my skin, and I had memorized the exact pressure of his hands. The beauty of the sixth sign is its restraint. He will not grab or grope, he will graze and guide, leaving you to fill in the blanks with your own imagination. I started cataloging the touches the way sommelier catalog notes in wine, the elevator hand that stayed after the doors opened, the coffee cup pass where our knuckles aligned perfectly, the umbrella tilt during a sudden downpour that brought his shoulder flush against mine. Each one was a breadcrumb leading to the same conclusion. He wants more but is waiting for permission. And permission, darling, is the sexiest word in any language. I have seen bold men use touch as punctuation, a period at the end of a joke, an exclamation after a compliment. I have seen shy men use it as a question mark, a hesitant fingertip, asking if this is okay. Both are valid, both are electric. The key is reciprocity. When you lean into the touch instead of away, when you let your own hand linger a beat longer, you are answering in the same dialect. I did that once in a New York taxi, letting my knee rest against the director's after a late night edit session. The car hit a pothole, our legs pressed harder, and neither of us moved to correct it. By the time we reached my hotel, the air was so thick with unspoken yes that the doorman blushed. The sixth sign is not about invasion, it is about invitation. It is the moment chemistry graduates from theory to practice, and the syllabus is written in goosebumps. By the time that lighting tech walked me to my car after the final show, his hand had found mine in the dark, without either of us looking. We did not kiss that night, but we did not need to. The touch had already said everything, and the promise of more was a current running between our palms all the way home. When a man's fingers speak your name against your skin, listen. The conversation is just getting started, and every nerve ending is tuned to the same frequency. The seventh sign is the shadow that proves the light, the quiet jealousy that flickers when another man steps too close to your sunshine. I discovered this at a rooftop party in Atlanta, the kind where the skyline sparkles like it is auditioning for a postcard. I was mid-conversation with a record producer, laughing at his terrible impression of a British accent, when I felt the temperature drop 3 degrees. Across the patio stood the photographer from chapter 2, the one who had lowered his camera to stare. His smile was still in place, but it had tightened at the corners, and his fingers had curled around his beer bottle like it owed him money. He was not glaring, not pouting, just watching with the stillness of a man calculating distance. Later, when the producer excused himself to take a call, the photographer materialized at my side with a fresh drink and a casual, "You okay?" That guy talks a lot. The question was innocent. The subtext was a neon sign. Jealousy, when it is secret attraction, is not a red flag, it is a flare. It is the heart's way of saying mine without using the word. I have seen it in boardrooms when a colleague compliments my pitch and the man across the table suddenly finds a flaw in the budget. I have seen it in dive bars when a stranger buys me a shot and my quiet admirer buys the entire round just to reestablish proximity. I have seen it in my own reflection when a woman touches the arm of a man I have not yet admitted I want. Jealousy is human, and in small doses it is flattering. It is proof that the idea of you with someone else rearranges his internal furniture. The key is the flavor. Possessive jealousy demands, protective jealousy defends. I once had a stylist who would position himself between me and any man who lingered too long at fittings, not with words, but with body language, a subtle shift that said, this space is spoken for. He never said a harsh word to anyone, but his presence was a velvet rope. I found it endearing, not controlling. Another time, a director rewrote a scene because an actor's hand stayed on my shoulder a beat too long during blocking. The new blocking had the actor across the room. The director called it better sight lines. I called it adorable. The seventh sign often hides in plain sight. It is the way his jaw tightens when you mention a funny text from a male friend. It is the sudden interest in your weekend plans when you say you are grabbing drinks with the girls and maybe some co-workers. It is the way he inserts himself into conversations he was happily ignoring 5 minutes earlier. These are not tantrums, they are tremors. The earth moves because you matter enough to shift its plates. I started welcoming the flicker instead of fearing it. A man who feels nothing has no reaction when another man orbits you. A man who feels everything has to work overtime to keep his cool. I once watched a CEO excuse himself from a dinner table when a charming investor made me laugh too hard. He returned with dessert for the entire table, but his eyes only asked me one question. Notice me. I did. And later, when the investor asked for my number for networking, the CEO was already standing beside me, hand light on my back, answering for me with a smile that said, not tonight. Jealousy in its healthiest form is the heart's bouncer. It does not lock the door, it simply checks IDs. By the time that rooftop party ended, the photographer had walked me to my car, admitted he hated watching other guys make me laugh, and asked if he could be the one to try next time. I said yes. The seventh sign is not about ownership, it is about priority. And when a man quietly rearranges the room so that you are always in his line of sight, believe the rearrangement. The eighth sign is the rarest and most precious, the silence that listens louder than any speech. I felt it in a quiet Cape Town beach house, rain tapping the roof like impatient fingers while I told a story I had never told anyone. It was about my father leaving when I was 7, about the way I still checked the driveway for his car every birthday. The man across from me, a writer I had been circling for months, did not interrupt, did not offer solutions, did not fill the air with noise. He simply stopped. Stopped moving, stopped blinking, stopped existing outside the space between my words. When I finished, tears tracking silently down my cheeks, he reached across the table and covered my hand with his. No words, just presence. That was the moment I understood. A man who is secretly attracted will give you the gift of being fully received. Silence, when it is attraction, is not empty, it is full. Full of respect, full of space, full of I see you. I have felt it in green rooms when I confessed fear of failing and the makeup artist put down her brush to listen. I have felt it in Ubers when I admitted exhaustion and the driver turned off the radio. I have felt it in my own home when a friend sat with me after a breakup and let the quiet stretch until it felt like a blanket. But the deepest silence comes from the man who wants more than your story. He wants your healing. He will let you unravel without rushing to stitch you back together. He will hold the threads until you are ready to weave again. I once had a co-star who, after a 12-hour shoot, asked how my day really was. I started with the scripted fine and ended with the truth. I was terrified the network would cancel our show. He did not promise it would be okay. He did not quote ratings. He simply nodded, slow, like he was absorbing the fear into his own body so I would not have to carry it alone. The next day, he showed up with coffee and a printed email from a fan who said my character had saved her life. He had stayed up searching. That is silence in action. The eighth sign often arrives unannounced. It is the way he lowers his voice when you speak, not to dominate, but to amplify. It is the way his eyes soften when you reveal a scar, physical or otherwise. It is the way he remembers the anniversary of your grandmother's passing without being told. Silence is the container that holds your truth without distortion. I started craving it the way addicts crave their fix. Words can lie, but silence cannot. I have ended relationships with men who filled every pause with noise because I realized noise was their shield. The man who can sit in your storm and not try to outshine it is the man who deserves your calm. By the time the rain stopped that night in Cape Town, the writer had not said more than 10 words, but I felt lighter than I had in years. He walked me to my room, kissed my forehead, and left. The next morning, there was a note under my door. Your story is safe with me. The 8th sign is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of sanctuary. And when a man offers you his silence like a cathedral, step inside. The peace you find there will echo long after the words fade away. The 9th sign is the one that ties every thread into a bow you can wear around your heart. The way he inspires you to trust your own intuition until it feels like a superpower. I realized this on a quiet Sunday morning in my Johannesburg kitchen, sunlight pooling on the counter while I scrolled through old photos on my phone. There was the gala gaze from Cape Town, the gym coincidences in Los Angeles, the jacaranda text, the rooftop flare of jealousy, the beach house silence, all of them separate Polaroids until that moment when they snapped into a single timeline. I was not crazy, I was not imagining. Every flutter, every spark, every unspoken yes had been real. And the common denominator was me, my gut whispering the truth long before anyone else confirmed it. That is the final sign. A man secretly attracted to you will awaken the oracle inside your chest until you never again doubt the voice that says he is yours before he has the courage to claim it. I have watched women ignore this voice and settle for lukewarm. I have watched them amplify it and walk straight into fireworks. The difference is everything. Intuition is not magic. It is pattern recognition on a soul level. Your body registers the dilated pupils, the mirrored gestures, the lingering touches, the memory receipts, the energy shifts, the protective flares, the sacred silences, and it compiles them into a single verdict: pay attention. I started honoring that verdict the way pilgrims honor holy ground. I stopped second-guessing the butterflies. I stopped asking friends if I was reading too much into it. I started treating my instincts like the most sophisticated lie detector on earth, because they are. Science calls it thin slicing, the ability to make accurate judgments from slivers of data. I call it the moment you graduate from hoping to knowing. I once turned down a high-profile collaboration because my gut screamed mismatch the second the producer walked in. Everyone said I was insane. 6 months later, the project imploded in a scandal that would have taken my name down with it. Another time, I said yes to a blind date because the friend who set it up described the way he talked about his grandmother's garden, and something in my chest lit up like a runway. We celebrated our 3rd anniversary last month. Intuition is not reckless. It is refined. It is the muscle you build by believing the small whispers until they become shouts you can no longer ignore. The man who is secretly attracted will hand you the weights for that muscle without realizing it. Every sign we have walked through is a rep, a curl, a squat in the gym of self-trust. By the time you recognize 7 out of 9, you are bench pressing certainty. I have seen it transform wallflowers into queens who walk into rooms and own the air. I have seen it save marriages that almost ended because one partner finally trusted the chill that said something is off. I have seen it launch careers when a woman followed the pull toward a mentor who looked at her the way we have been describing. Your intuition is the North Star, and attraction is the compass that proves it works. The final gift a secret admirer gives you is permission to believe in your own magic. He may never say the words, but his actions will shout them until your inner voice harmonizes. I started keeping a journal of these moments, not for proof, but for celebration. The entry after the beach house silence reads, "He held my pain like it was fragile glass. I am never settling for plastic again." The entry after the jacaranda sapling, "He planted a tree for a memory I thought no one heard." My heart is official parkland. The entry after the rooftop jealousy, "He cared enough to hate sharing my laugh. I am worth the fuss." Each line is a brick in the cathedral of self-trust I now worship in. You will build your own. The 9th sign is not about him anymore. It is about you stepping into the version of yourself who needs no external validation because the internal one is deafening. I have watched women leave toxic situations the moment their intuition said run. I have watched them propose to men who were too scared to ask. I have watched them negotiate salaries, start businesses, adopt children, write books, all because a secret attraction taught them to trust the voice that never steers wrong. By the time I closed that journal on the Sunday morning the photos revealed, I was crying happy tears into my coffee. Every man who had ever looked at me with that particular hunger had been a professor in the same course, How to Believe Bonang When She Says She Knows. The diploma is framed in my heart, and the commencement speech is this: you already hold the answers. The signs are simply the syllabus. Study them, trust them, live them. You will never again walk into a room wondering if you belong. You will walk in knowing who is already grateful you arrived. The man who is secretly attracted to you is the catalyst, but the explosion is yours. Own it. Light up the sky, and when the next chapter of your love story begins, you will recognize the opening line because you wrote it in your sleep. The ninth sign is the moment you realize the secret was never his. It was the queen inside you, waiting for the crown he helped you see. Wear it well, darling. The world has been waiting for your reign. If these stories lit even one spark of recognition in your chest, hit that subscribe button, drop your favorite sign in the comments, like so your girls see it too, and share this with every sister who deserves to know her power. New truths drop every week, and you do not want to miss the next one.